Welcome to At Home with the Johnsons. With me, Lisa.
And me, Sam.
We're going to be discussing a load of different issues about having a multi-seven-figure business and what life is like. So we'll be talking life and we'll be talking a bit of business. But we'll also be talking some controversial topics, but we want you to get involved too.
Because we do love a debate.
We love a debate.
And if you want to get involved in the debate, you can join us on our Facebook group At Home with the Johnsons. Ready? My chair's a bit.
Chair all right?
Chair's all right now.
So we're going to talk about health because I think it's really important as an entrepreneur that we look after our health. And I didn't used to think this, and I didn't used to really believe it mattered. But obviously, because of everything that's happened in our lives over the past 8 years since we became entrepreneurs and business owners, it's now... Did you do that because you don't feel like you're an entrepreneur?
Not an entrepreneur.
Okay, business owner.
Since you became an entrepreneur.
Lackey.
Lackey? Well, I'm the lackey.
Yeah. I feel like it's really important that we talk about health because I don't think you really talk about health until it takes a nosedive, and by then it's too late. There's loads of stuff that you can be doing before to be in your absolute highest peak performance in business if you concentrate on health, and we didn't. So let's talk a bit about our health journey so people have got some context into what happened. So with me, I started a business 8 years ago, and then about 5 years ago, things started to go very wrong. Up until that point, I was really healthy.
You say that.
I was. You mean like food? You're looking at me about food?
No, what do you mean food?
Like unhealthy food?
Well, there was that. But you had a childhood of not the most healthy kind of years, didn't you?
Well, I had like asthma and things like that.
Well, I have an image of you like sort of Tiny Tim wrapped up in bandages by the
always say
windows
this.
looking at the kids playing snowballs while you weren't allowed out because you were so ill, like a sort of Victorian chimney sweep. That sort of thing.
It's good that you have that, but that isn't actually the truth.
You did tell me you broke both your arms or both your legs.
I had brittle bones when I was younger, so I broke a lot of things, and I was allergic to a lot of things. So, for instance, the grass. If the grass had been cut, I wasn't allowed to go to school.
You still are now, though, aren't you?
Yeah, so I wasn't allowed to go to school. So there
dog hair.
Then I'm gone with one dog hair.
I know.
So, but I wasn't like wrapped in bandages looking
I
at my
don't know
window.
why I have that image, but it stays with me. It really does. I swear it's because of that photo of you when they add you in as the 6th member of Boyzone or whatever it is. And there's like...
You say I look like I had rickets in that picture.
I've never seen anything like it, honestly. Just something from like Oliver Twist or something, like a poor boy in the workhouse.
Right,
Anyway,
we're
sorry.
moving past this.
Go on then, go back to that.
So, I was fairly healthy as an adult until I started the business, and a couple of years after I started the business, I started to get some really weird symptoms. So, you'll never know what this is like, I expect, but if you have a UTI, a water infection, a kidney infection, you feel like you need to go to the loo 24/7, it's excruciating, and there's a load of burning pain. It's just horrible. You feel horrible.
I sympathise.
Oh yeah, you have a bit of that.
Because I've obviously come to know through you.
Yeah. So I suddenly got what I thought was a UTI. Went to the doctors and they did the usual thing, which they did twice a year, chucked me some antibiotics and it would normally go, but it didn't go this time. So I went back again and they gave me different antibiotics and it didn't go. Anyway, I ended up having this 24/7 for 3 years. There were many points where I didn't think I would be able to live the next day. It was like, you remember, it was...
I can remember, it was horrendous, yeah.
The most horrendous time in my life that I've had. And still to this day, no one can tell me what it was. There were some diagnosis of chronic UTI, interstitial cystitis. There was no bacteria found anywhere. It was just no one knew. Nervous system, could be anything, autoimmune. And then once I decided I'm going to have to just live with it, it started to get lower and lower and lower. And we've got it to a manageable point now.
You get an occasional flare up, don't you?
But mostly it's okay. And I did so many things. Like I spent over 100,000 on that. Like going to different doctors in Harley Street, trying to work out what this thing was. People put me on antibiotics for over a year. That messed up my stomach. There were so many things with this health. And then as soon as that kind of got under control, I started to get breathing issues and chest pain. First few times I went to A&E, thought I was having a heart attack. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And we're still not at the bottom of that one. That's cost me another 200,000. Trying to get to the bottom of that. No one can tell me what it is, or the tests come back okay. I've had all these different health issues. We've gone down the stress route, the anxiety route, the emotional route, everything you can possibly imagine. I did quite a lot of things that someone like me would not normally do. Went down the spiritual route. You know, what if it's something to do with that? Like, when you're desperate to feel better, you will try anything. And I tried everything and nothing really has worked.
What's it called? Like naturopath?
I did naturopathy, I did homeopathy, I did literally everything. Like, I had magnets put on me. Like, I did lots of things to try and get rid of the fact that one day I can wake up and not be able to breathe in. So any times that I have had speaking on stages or anything like that, I could wake up that morning and not be able to do it. Yeah. And it's still quite bad at the moment, but it's nowhere near how it sometimes is. And I can go 2 months with it, and then it disappears for a month. And then I get it for another 3 months, and then it disappears for 2 weeks. And I never know when it's going to be there. So I've had all these different health issues, and I think that it's too much of a coincidence that they've happened since I started my business. So I think they has to be related in some way to busyness or stress. Even though I don't feel stressed, I get that my head is never going to feel stressed. I thrive on it. I love it. My body might. So I've tried to do lots of de-stressing things to try and get rid of it. It hasn't worked so far, but who knows? Like, it's a journey, I think, with these things. And then while that was going on, and I was like in hospital constantly, you suddenly had your issue.
Well, yeah. So
but you didn't know you did.
I didn't know I had any issue. I felt fine. And then under duress from you was made to go through one of them health MOT things, because I'm a bloke and we don't get ill, do we? So I just ignore it and
I didn't. Right. I was only going to that to try and find out what this chest pain and breathing thing was.
So you said I might as well come along with you.
Like a day out.
Well, it was quite posh, wasn't it? It was one of those London things with like big fluffy white robes and a little private room and nice cup of tea on the go and all of that.
A whole day, a whole raft of tests.
That was all right.
MRIs and ECGs.
Yeah, I felt okay about it, and got to the end. And
you didn't at first. You actually said no.
I mean, I felt okay about actually being there on the day.
Yeah,
it was quite
but
a comfy
before
place.
that, you were like, no, I'm not coming. I'm really healthy. I go to the gym all the time. There's no reason.
You know that's not why. The reason to not go is purely because I thought they'd find something.
Oh, really?
Of course. I thought it would be heart. My dad had heart disease. I'm an ex-smoker. You know, I'm fitter and healthier now than I was then, but at the time I wasn't overly fit and healthy. So I thought in my head that's what would happen. So when I saw the 14-year-old doctor at the end of it, and he went through it all with me, and he
you think everyone's 14 because you're old.
I know. I do know. No, actually, I think everyone is between the age of about 28 and 45.
They're all the same.
Now they are to me.
No different.
You know, but anyway, stop interrupting. And he went through everything, and he went, "Oh, your heart looks good, no problem there." He said, your blood pressure's fine, blah blah blah, all of that. And he went, "Oh, but there's your PSA reading is a little bit high, and that's for the blood test for your prostate." And he said, it's probably nothing. He said, readings going up and down. He said, have you done any exercise this week? I said, yeah. He said, could be that. He gave me a little quick check out, and he said, feels fine. He said, but I suggest you go to your urologist. Bear in mind, again, I had no symptoms of this. And I went to the urologist, and he did a scan. And he said, yeah, there's something a bit blurry there. So then they do a biopsy, and the biopsy showed that there was I think they take 50 things, 20 of them had cancer in them, in my prostate. Bear in mind, the prostate's only that big anyway. It's quite skillful how they do this. And then, so that was a bit of a shitty...
That was a shock.
Shitty shock, wasn't it?
Well, because you got no symptoms. At least if you have symptoms, you want to know what it is.
This is why, I mean, bizarrely, jumping around on the timeline, when I look back, I don't think I've ever really had, people have had cancer, that's awful. And you're like, well, you've had cancer. I'm like, oh, yeah.
You forget.
Because I didn't feel ill, ever. I felt shit after the operation moving forward a bit, when they took the prostate out, but I never felt ill. I never had any symptoms, no problem with my wee, no problem with my functioning down there. Everything was fine. So yeah, that was a bit of a shocker. And he said, right, here's what we're going to do. I would suggest we remove it. He said, you're young for this. I was 53, 52.
Yeah.
And he said, we can just remove it, do the surgery. And that's definitely the best way to do for you, because you're young and you'll recover and you'll be fine. So within the space of like 6 months, I'd been totally healthy, been diagnosed, found out I had it, booked in the operation.
And you were stage 2, so you were further along than
yeah.
people who, you know.
Remember the I asked him, and this is going to bring it back to us sounding like privileged knobs. I said, when do we need to do the operation? Because I don't want to get things out of context, but I'm going on a private yacht in August. I said, any chance it could be after that? And he went, no, it'll be fine. He said, it won't grow that much in that amount of time. So I had the operation in the September.
Yeah.
And it had grown quite a lot in that time.
Well, it had grown loads in that
as it
time.
happened, and they had to remove more than they thought they were going to around it. And so, I was glad I didn't leave it for like after Christmas or something.
Well, apparently if you're younger, it's more aggressive.
Grows quicker when you're younger, but you can deal better. So then I had the operation. I'm now 2 years, just over 2 years free. I get a 6 monthly blood test where they check the PSA. And so, but I found it hard at the time to accept that it was cancer. Not to accept that it was cancer, but that I had cancer. And that sounds a really weird thing to say.
You still don't think of yourself as someone that is a cancer survivor?
Really weird. And I'm bearing in mind, it's 50,000 men a year in the UK alone get prostate cancer. It is the biggest cancer in the country, in the world for men. And all you've got to do is get a blood test. It's very simple. And I'm a bit of a stuck record on this now. Go to get a blood test. Takes you 3 minutes. No one's putting their finger anywhere, which puts a lot of men off. I know it does.
Yeah.
No one does that anymore. It's just a blood test. It's very simple.
I think the thing is that if you'd waited until you had symptoms, you would very likely be dead by now.
I think I'd be here now. Genuinely, the speed it was growing. And so you just like it because you saved my life.
That is what I like.
You saved it anyway when I met you, but that's a different thing. But you actually saved my physical life by making me go to this posh clinic in London. And
do you know what's annoying about all of it? I went to that posh clinic to find a diagnosis of why I feel
And you still
sick.
haven't got one, have you?
I still don't have one 2 years later.
I know, you can't really be, moaning at me for having cancer.
Well, no.
That's not really
I'm not moaning
appropriate.
at you for having it, but sometimes I do think, even if it, like the diagnosis was cancer, I
understand.
Prefer it.
And on this topic of health, as we're talking about, I think anything diagnosed, almost no matter what it is better to deal with than an undiagnosed chronic
Because
condition.
I've now had undiagnosed chronic illnesses that are debilitating for 5 years, and no one's told me what's wrong with me.
At least you know what it is, you can make a plan, you can deal with it, you can work out how you're going to best manage it. What's the prognosis? What can you do? What can't you do? For you, it's so up in the air. And I think relaying this to the business thing, I think what a lot of people don't see is the impact that your health has on you behind the scenes. Because one of the things that people always say to you is, you look amazing on camera, you look so healthy. And I've seen you 2 minutes before you've gone on, like feeling like absolute death.
Yeah, I'll be on the floor, like thinking I'm having a heart attack.
And I think that's probably applicable to a lot of people in the public eye, that they have a public persona, they have a kind of face that they put on almost when they're out there. And because they don't show it visibly, that people don't quite understand
I just never look ill. Even when I'm at my worst, I never look ill.
Do I look grey? Do I look green?
And you're like, no, you look fine.
You look really well. You've just got bloody tan. You look amazing. I look pale because I am English, a pale boy.
I think that there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there who have chronic diseases, who have autoimmune diseases, who have things that aren't cut and dried, that there's a plan to get rid of. And I think that they are every day forcing themselves to get up and do their job because they have to, and no one's really helping them with their health. And I think that there are a lot of ways to prevent these things from happening. Like, you'll hear loads of people, functional medical practitioners, all these different people talking to you about ways to prevent yourself getting ill. But I think that until you get ill, you sort of ignore it.
Yeah, but I think that's the message that we need to be promoting today, isn't it? From both of us to a point, share that, is waiting for it and then trying to deal with it after it
Much
arrives. Not
harder.
the way. It's a lot of stuff. It's very easy to talk the talk, but having a better diet, not drinking so much alcohol, doing a bit more exercise, all of those things, taking time out, taking time for yourself to just be still.
But also
and calm.
nervous system. I don't know anything about nervous system regulation. I didn't even know that was a thing.
No.
And it's only now that I realise that most of my illnesses probably do come from some kind of nervous system dysregulation somewhere. And I think lots of people who are business owners, entrepreneurs, they don't feel stress like other people feel stress. They kind of thrive on it a bit.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is it doesn't matter if you're feeling it, it's what is happening to your body.
Yeah.
And so you could be getting iller and iller and iller and not even realising it because you're not doing anything with your nervous system. I now do tons of work on my nervous system. Like I have a sensate, I do lots of little exercises that I worked with a nervous system coach who taught me all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also just keeping your cortisol levels down all the time is actually quite difficult when you're a business owner because stuff is happening all the time.
And also, you touched on it because you sort of thrive on it. I see you. A lot of people make this assumption. They say, you need to stop working, you need to calm down. It makes you worse a lot of the time.
It does. It makes my illnesses worse.
Time to, you sort of, everything gets on top of you because you're not focusing your mind on what you love. And you love working.
I love working, yeah.
Most of the elements of it. There are bits of it that you don't. But I see you, and you're often as happy as you ever are. If you come up with something new and you're working on it and you're building it and you can see where it can go and you can see how can it help people, you're never more excited than that.
No, but that doesn't mean that my body is.
True.
So while my head is doing that, my body could be like burnout, screaming at me to calm down. Like your body tells you what it needs, and I ignore mine a lot of the time, or used to. And I think that if I had understood some of these preventative measures and some of the ways to listen to your body 5 years ago, I wouldn't be where I am now with health. It's taken me a lot longer to put things right than it would have been to prevent them in the first place. But people, when they're looking at coaches, they look at, money coaches, business coaches, confidence coaches, speaker coaches. No one's looking at health coaching. It's the most important thing. It's the most important. There's no way I would have needed to spend $300,000 on health after if I would have spent 20k on a health coach.
I think there's a shift coming. I think younger generations are realising the importance of that because old school entrepreneurs were like, I get up at 3 a.m, I work till midnight, never done me any harm, I've brought up the hard way and all that, and it was almost seen as a weakness to admit that you had anything wrong with you physically or mentally if you were a sort of hard-nosed business person.
Well, let's talk mental health, because we've talked physical health, and actually mental health has played a part in all of it as well. So I'm diagnosed as high-functioning depression, anxiety. You're diagnosed with anxiety, and you're on sertraline. I've been on stuff like that before. We've both had therapy of some kind. And yet there's still this stigma around people who have businesses being scared to talk about it in case their clients think, they won't be very good.
When in fact the opposite is fundamentally true, isn't it? Because if you're aware of yourself to know these things, you understand how it can affect performance, then surely you're in a better position to run a business and be offering services to people of all sorts of needs and requirements because of your background. And
it shows me, like, when people come to me and they're not performing brilliantly, a lot of the time I can see that it's because of something that's going on mentally.
It's easier to see it in other people, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's always the case.
It is.
To self-analyse and to understand yourself. Like when about a year ago, maybe not even that long, I had a bit of a sort of meltdown, didn't I? Everything just got a bit much. And I think mine is built on historical stuff from a decade ago and more, and not dealing with stuff at the time that I should have dealt with, but you don't necessarily see it coming. And I think especially being a man of a certain generation, we don't really find ourselves in positions often to talk about this stuff.
No, and when you had that breakdown, I was mid-launch.
Oh yeah.
And I think no one sees this stuff. Like, people always say to me, it seems easy for you. Like, you do launches and things and everything goes perfectly. And I wish sometimes they could see behind the scenes.
We are people who are sociable people and outgoing people. And we're both of us can disguise things quite well. And people love our relationship, and we do have a great relationship. We do get on really well, but we're not going to dump everything on everyone's doorsteps when stuff isn't quite so
But
brilliant.
is it more important for us to start talking just generally in the world about when things are a bit harder? Because I didn't talk about how you'd had a breakdown during that launch, and that launch was a 2.7 million launch, and I did it while you were back and forth to doctors and, you know, getting up at 2 a.m. And that is what happens.
Yeah.
And we didn't really talk about that.
No, maybe not specifically, but I think we as a business have always been quite open in one of your biggest kind of pillars of being a successful business is you have to be honest and you have to share the crap with the good, and people will resonate. No one resonates with a perfect human being.
That's true.
No one.
Because everyone has flaws, everyone has things that go wrong.
We see some people on the online world and they're perfect physical specimens, and they're eating their quinoa salad and they're doing their hour of yoga every morning.
No one actually eats quinoa salad.
Come on. Like, just don't get me wrong, it's great he's trying to be healthy and you're looking good and whatever, but there is no one in the world that hasn't got another side to that coin.
And that's the same with me. Like, I will have times when my depression rears its head.
Yeah.
And you see that. Probably you're the only person that really sees it because we hide it from the kids. But there are days when I can't get out of bed. There are days when depression really hits, and I can't tell when that's going to happen.
That's the beauty of our working / personal relationship, I think. Well, sometimes it can be tough and it can pull you in both directions, but I think the fact that I know firsthand what you're going through, what you're dealing with work, so I suppose I'm able to understand when you do have these moments, and I think that's a message to anyone else. It doesn't have to be someone you work with and are married to, because that's an unusual combo, but if you've got someone who you can talk to about it, who you can open up to about it, they're not going to judge you, they're going to listen to you. Sometimes, honestly, when I saw my therapist, every time I come back, I was like, all I did was talk to him.
But you were happier when
I said,
you
we
did.
talked about trainers. I said, he's like a bloke a bit like me. And then we talked about music. And he said, and then I said, do you feel better about it? I went, yeah. And when you were like, well,
Isn't that the
jobs are
point?
good, isn't it? Innit?
Yeah.
And you don't need, it doesn't have to be a regimented, tick box, organised structure when you're talking to someone like that. He obviously knows what he's doing. And just getting me chatting about stuff is obviously a big part of that.
I think to end this podcast, I just want everyone to realise that if you aren't happy mentally, you know, if you're going through mental health or physical health issues, don't feel you need to hide it. And don't feel that people won't want to work with you. I've never been short of clients, ever. And I talk about the mental health problems that I have and the physical health problems I have all the time.
I think the opposite applies, genuinely do. And I think that's something that's changed in business over the years, like I touched on earlier, like old school entrepreneurs. Now it's not seen as a weakness at all. It's something that gives you different layers that is going to resonate with more people. And if there are people who don't resonate with that, then they're not the people to work with you, are they?
Yeah, they're not the people you want in your lives, are they? So yeah, just go seek help about it and talk about it to other people, because the more I talk about it to other multi-7, multi-8-figure entrepreneurs, the more I find out that they're all going through it.
Absolutely.
So it's something we all need to do more of.
I agree.
You've been listening to At Home with the Johnsons.
Why not come and join the discussion at our Facebook group, At Home with the Johnsons?
Go and check the link in the show notes.